Damien Delaney, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. Right.
A little bit of madness of Wednesday morning or a Tuesday night as it was when that goal went in. Happy days for Villa fans.
Yeah, absolutely massive goal for them, lifting themselves out of the relegation zone, and they're probably under pressure to be a little bit better off this season at this stage of the season than probably what they are. But they've certainly got the makings of a good team there.
Tell us a little bit about what those relegation six-pointers are actually like. What's the pressure like compared to, say, a big cup game?
Well, I mean, if you get knocked out of the cup, it's not the end of the world. But if you lose a couple of those so-called six-pointers in a row, especially because I played in them, the morning leading up to the game, that you just can't be beat. A draw may be good enough. You might be, you can kind of take something from a draw, but it's the ones when you get to the back end of the season. Remember, we had one once where we played Norwich at home, and it was a genuine six-pointer. I think it was only about 4 or 5 games to go in the season, and we ended up winning it 1-0. Jason Punchin scored. With the relief afterwards is just immense, because you know that these are games you have to win, and that's an enormous amount of pressure to have to put on yourself. Are
there celebrations in the dressing room? Like, I know you're all supposed to be professionals and the league season's not over. What is the winning dressing room like?
Exhaustion, because I think everyone is just so mentally focused on trying to get a win, that when you do get the win, people come in and it's almost like, puff of the cheeks and like, oh, thank God for that, thank God that's over, or the first thing you do is get the TV turned on so you can check out the results, just to make sure that the others didn't win as well, because that's probably one of the most demoralising things, when you kind of get a massive win on a Saturday afternoon or a Tuesday night, and you come in, you turn on the telly and you find out everyone else has won as well around you, and you've not moved an inch in the league. So that's one of the most demoralising bits. But relief, I think, would be the overriding emotion.
Let's move on to the centre-back partnership at Arsenal last night. They're being called a clown act, all sorts of stuff coming their way. If you're David Luiz, are you a little bit pissed off the fact that you're carrying the can for what happened last night?
Not really. I wouldn't be. Not be a teammate, because it's a team game. Mustafi made a terrible mistake. David Luiz has made enough of them over the years. David Luiz has put enough people in trouble over the years. So I think if you're honest, you just accept that these things happen. But I feel sorry for the Arsenal centre-backs. They're just such a flimsy team in midfield and up front defensively, that it's hard to be a centre-back in that team. Now, I know Mustafi should have made the mistake that he made, but I think the Arsenal centre-backs come under an awful amount of pressure. And I think that's one thing that Arteta is looking to put right, just have a better structure in the team defensively as a group, as opposed to just continuously blaming the two centre-backs.
Do you think then that there is a vastly different version of Mustafi and Luiz that we would see with better protection in front of them, or do you think that they're still quite average, but they're just actually playing below that?
Yeah, I think that. I think they're obviously. I'm not for a second saying that they're going to be, John Terry and Carvalho all of a sudden if you get a good structure around them. But I definitely think that you need to accept the fact that they're your two centre backs. So you either change your two centre backs, or if you can't, or that's what you're stuck with, then you need to put a better system around them to protect them a little bit more. Take away a lot of the high risk decisions that they have to make, or lessen them certainly. And that's what better having a better structure in midfield, better structure up front when you don't have the ball, be more resilient, more shape-orientated team. And I think that will be a step in the right direction for Arsenal.
Because that has been one of the ideas that Mikel Arteta has brought into the club, is just giving the centre-backs a bit more responsibility on the ball. I think Emery was a bit clueless with regards to what they should actually do when the ball is at their feet. Arteta is saying to them, make sure that the opposition player actually commits, which is a fairly high-risk strategy when your name is David Luiz or Shkodran Mustafi, it seems.
Yeah, I like the work that Arteta is doing. He's got a nice feel to him. I think first of all, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be pretty happy the last couple of weeks. I know the results haven't been great, but it just feels like he's kind of he definitely stopped the rot and he got them facing in the right direction again, as opposed to them kind of listing aimlessly around. He just seems to have them facing in the right direction. I think with a couple of transfer windows, he is probably a guy that's going to need 2 years to undo the work that's been done. But certainly if he's coaching the centre-backs, he will be coaching midfield players as well, whereas always before under Emery, it always looked a little bit off the cuff with the centre-backs. It's like, if you got the ball at your feet, do whatever you feel is right, do whatever you think is great. And if you want to play a tricky one through midfield or a risky ball, that's fine too, no problem. But if he's giving them clear options in midfield, he's going to have to make sure that his midfield players and his wide players are in positions to receive the ball. Then, those become a little bit less high risk.
And when you're talking about the midfielders that are obviously contributing to the downfall on some occasions of Arsenal, are you just looking at Xhaka and Torreira, or is that just a bit too simple and actually the blame should go a little bit further forward to the likes of whoever's in the 10 row, Mesut Ozil last night?
Yeah, I think that's what it starts. Starts with your number 9, because most teams play out from the back now. And if your number 9 is just daydreaming and the ball goes from the opposition back four into the opposition midfield too easily, and all of a sudden Ozil switched off, and then the next pass is too easy, and then that kind of has a knock-on effect, and your midfield players get dragged out. And Torreira and Xhaka, I think Xhaka's obviously not had the best of times at Arsenal, but he's not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. I think there's a use for him. And Torreira is actually a very good player as well. But when the ball bypasses kind of their front players and their number 10 in Ozil, then Torreira has to react. It's almost like a knock-on effect. He then has to react and go and maybe into an area of the pitch that he doesn't want to go into, which then the centre-backs get dragged in, So when I talk about having a better structure down the middle of your team, it's like having a more of a set midfield, that they don't get dragged out because Ozil's doing the job he's supposed to be doing, and your number 9 and your wide players are all doing the job they're supposed to be doing. Whereas when Arsenal lost the ball under Emery, it looked like that they all just down tools, especially the number 9 and the number 10.
The ability to come back into the game last night suggests as well a bit of the resilience is beginning to emerge.
Yeah.
Is that because they were playing Chelsea last night and Chelsea couldn't put them away, or is that a sign that actually things are going well for them?
I think it's a sign things are starting to change for them. They've not changed just yet, but as I said, I think he's got facing in the right direction now. I love listening to him talk. Arteta, I reckon he's a very, very demanding manager. I think he definitely expects an awful lot from his players. He puts an awful lot of demands on them. And I remember, when he spoke before the Everton game in his first game, he was talking about he wants to see reaction, he wants to see how they behave, how they carry themselves, and they're all important things. And you can see that it's gradually starting to show on that Arsenal team.
What about Chelsea? Should they be a little bit further along, or is Frank Lampard giving you the same sense of confidence that you're getting from Arteta at the moment?
Well, look, I know Frank Lampard is, 5 or 6 points ahead of Man United at the moment. I know that, because I know the discussion on Sunday was all about that. He hasn't had a transfer window, Frank. He's been under a transfer embargo. And on top of that, on his first day, he lost arguably the best player in the world in Eden Hazard. But for me, I think Chelsea are a well-coached team. I like watching Chelsea play. I'm not for a second saying that, they're going to win the league anytime soon. But I certainly think that they're a very well-coached team. They're quite positive in what they do. They try to dominate the ball. They try to take the game to the opposition, whereas sometimes with Man United they look a little bit kind of, the only weapon they have is a counter-attack. But I like watching Chelsea play. It was an enjoyable game to watch last night, actually. I found myself, it kind of went by pretty quick. And it was, Chelsea definitely taking the game to Arsenal helps.
So you don't think that Lampard should be getting criticism just yet, that actually he's doing an okay job for somebody in his first Premier League job?
Yeah, I think he's doing a very good job, Lampard. I think, as I said, when you watch Chelsea play, you can see patterns and structures in what they do. Give him a transfer window. I know he might sign people in January. He might sign people in the summer, but give him 1 or 2 transfer windows. Bring in the right type of players, because they are probably 1 or 2 players short. They're probably I think maybe a real good quality midfield player short. I know Kovacic is quite good. I know Pulisic didn't play last night, but he's obviously a guy who's very, very talented. But, maybe a real top-end midfield player and maybe another number 9, proper centre forward. I know Tammy Abraham's done a fantastic job, but, he's so young and it's his first season. It's a big load to carry on his own. So I think that a good centre forward, because they have the makings of a good team there. And as I said, they're a well-coached team.
Who do you think is going to finish 4th?
I think Tottenham will finish 4th.
Right.
I just fancy Jose just to put some sort of a run together. I know that might sound a bit daft, but I think they should put a good run together. Chelsea, possibly as well. But, coming to the back end of the season with Champions League, they're quite a young squad. it depends on whether he's going to strengthen or not this month, because you can see they're starting to lag a little bit now in January. You can see that maybe they're having a little bit of a drop off. I mean, the same could be said for Tottenham, but I just think that Jose, if he gets to signing this window, I think Tottenham will do it. But I think it all depends on that centre forward he's looking for.
It sounds like Jose was listening to you on Saturday with the lads when you were talking about Troy Parrott. Everybody needs to calm down a bit about him, was essentially your message. And Jose echoing that yesterday. Everybody needs to calm down a bit. This guy's not quite ready to shoulder the burden and step in to be Harry Kane's replacement. He's only 17. Needs to play a bit of youth team football first.
Yeah, look, I mean, he sees him every day in training. Jose does. So he knows that he's not quite at the level that's required yet. And I think everyone should accept that, And then I know people are going to jump on the whole Jose doesn't do youth team players and doesn't promote youth and stuff like that. But he's 17. If he was 19, 20, 21, I might have some sympathy for him, but he's 17. He's going to learn so much from being in and around that Tottenham first team changing room, training every day with them, to see the standards that are required every day in training. He's going to learn so much, and I know a lot of people are saying he should go on loan, but not yet. He's only 17. If you chuck him out on loan, you could ruin him, especially into the Championship. Maybe if he went abroad to Holland or somewhere where the football might be a touch slower and less physical, but I definitely will be sending him into the Championship at 17 because you could ruin him.
Yeah, and I wonder is kind of part of this as well, Damien, the fact that he's a centre forward. It's kind of similar to the fact that, say, if he was a central midfielder or a central defender as well, he'd be equally susceptible to being ruined if he went out on loan. That he doesn't, like, say if he makes an error in a game or if he misses a chance, it's going to be very noticeable. Whereas if he was a fullback, if he was a winger, if he played a little bit more on the periphery positionally, he could almost make mistakes at senior level, get away with it, and then learn. If he makes a mistake as a centre forward, everybody's going to know his name for the wrong reasons almost. I wonder, is that part of it?
Yeah, of course, and I think if he could damage his confidence an awful lot if you sent him out on loan, because he's a young guy finding his feet and finding his way. And it's very, very difficult when you go out on loan. All of a sudden, you got grown men, really, really battle-hardened centre backs and centre midfield players could start knocking him around a little bit. And then he misses a couple of chances. And then obviously the eyes of the Irish media are going to be on him if he did go out on loan, and that pressure might be too much to put on top of him, because if the loan spell didn't go well, then a lot of people will be like, oh, there it was again, all overhyping Troy Parrott. He's not as good as what he is. Let him develop, because even Pochettino, before he left, he said it's going to be minimum 2 years before he gets in that in my Tottenham team. So Pochettino said that. So it's not just Jose Mourinho. Let him develop, let him train, let him get on with his career. And when he turns 19, 20, like Tananga, the right back, who Jose said, is a huge gap. There's 3 years between them, 2 years. I know Troy turns 18 very soon, but there's 2 years between them. But 2 years at that age group is huge.
Is there a danger almost that you can kind of look at, say, even in the context of some of the goal scorers last night, in Gabriel Martinelli, for example, an 18-year-old striker who's scoring goals for Arsenal, playing regularly, that almost he's not going to become, say, necessarily a better player than Troy Parrott. He's just almost better formed to play the central attacker role at this point. Like, I don't know, because like it's very tempting to actually gaze at what other clubs are doing and what what other nationalities are actually playing and all that. That to say, oh, there's an 18-year-old kid playing there, and why isn't Troy Parrott getting the same opportunity?
Because Arsenal would have watched Martinelli every week. Now, Troy Parrott's playing UEFA Youth Cup. And he scored a hatful of goals, and he's done really, really well. And it's a lovely part of his development. He's at a lovely stage, but they see him every day, and they'll know. They watch him training every day, and some days he might not be quite at it. Some days he might be at it, but it's the consistency that you're looking for. And obviously, if he's training against Vertonghen, Alderweireld, that's a huge learning experience for him. How difficult training every day will be against them, because I could imagine those guys every day training to a really, really high level. So Troy needs to get to that level, and he needs to show every day, that he can compete with these guys, that he's training really, really well. When he does that, then maybe he'll be given a chance, or then they'll think it's time for him to go on loan.
Can I ask you a couple of quick fire questions here? James McCarthy spoke with Stephen Doyle after one of he come off the bench, I think. This would have been in November time, and it was before the Denmark and New Zealand matches. And at that stage he was like, look, I'm just concentrated on club football, I'm just concentrating on getting back in the team, I'm concentrating on playing a bunch of games back to back, and when that's done, when I get back there, then I'll start thinking about international football again. Yeah. And then he was unavailable for personal reasons, is what Mick McCarthy said. McCarthy said that he had a chat with him and that he would have played some part in the New Zealand game. So obviously he wasn't going to play in the Denmark game. And McCarthy said, you'll have to ask him about why he's not available. We haven't had a falling out, and I'm not closing the door on anybody. Fast forward, he's back in the Palace team, starting every game, playing well, getting praise lavished on him from the Palace manager. Is he a shoe-in? Is he going to show up? What do you think is going to happen with regards to the Ireland setup now for these two big games, hopefully?
I think he has to almost certainly be in the squad. And I know Mick is very loyal to Glenn Whelan, but it massively depends on where Glenn Whelan is in March. What level he's playing at and how much football that he has played. Because I could imagine if Glenn Whelan went into the Championship and was playing week in, week out in the Championship and was doing reasonably well, then I think Mick would stick with, the tried and trusted, and he's quite loyal to his players. But I think that a player of James McCarthy's calibre, I mean, I've watched an awful lot of Crystal Palace the last, since he's got back in the team, really. I mean, I think he's done really, really well. And I think if I was manager, I would certainly start him, because I think he's that good a player. I think he has that bounce back in his step that he always, they used to have when he was at Everton. He looks fit, he looks confident. Palace are getting some really good results. Obviously not last night, but for me, I'd start him, because outside of Glenn Whelan, there's nobody else can really play that number 6 in the Ireland squad. I know Conor Horan has been tried there before. I don't think he's a natural number 6, Conor. But other than that, you're kind of really struggling. So for me, he's a shoo-in to be in the squad, and depending on where Glenn Whelan is, will determine whether he starts or not.
Yeah, and hopefully he wants to, and he feels he's ready to come back as well. That was the other unspoken aspect of all that. And one other one, just wanted to very quickly ask you about. Shane Long started last night, scored at the weekend. Don't have very many strikers starting in the Premier League. Obviously, Obafemi got to start last night as well. Nowhere near any mixed squads, it seems, recently. So is he back in the squad now on this basis?
Yeah, you could not. I mean, have someone like Shane Long in your squad, because, I mean, worst case scenario, you have him on your bench. And if you're, losing 1-0 or you're drawing 0-0 and you need to get the win, he's definitely somebody I would be bringing on for the last 10, 15 minutes, for a back four that's tiring. The last thing you'd want to see is Shane Long running on the pitch, because he's such high energy and he's so aggressive in his play. He's definitely someone to have in the squad. But I start him. I mean, I know he really likes McGoldrick, but is McGoldrick really a number 9 or is he more of a 10? But for me, Shane Long's guaranteed to be in the squad. He has to be in the squad. He could not put him in the squad. He's playing week in, week out. He scored last week. He's definitely in the squad for me.
Damien, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.